people that are logging on. And so
Cool.
we got Jordan Twohig of St. Mary's College, associate head coach, joining me tonight. Jordan's a guy that I've known for, I don't know how many years. It's been a while.
It's been a while. 18, 20 years, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So
yeah,
let's go through your bio real quick. So that if
Sure.
I forget, if I screw something up, let me know.
Okay.
Jordan's a Northern California native. Started off at Feather River College. Actually, no, I take that back. Started off at Cuesta College down in Cuesta, down by San Luis.
Yeah, that's right.
And up to Feather River. Migrated to the Midwest at Bellevue, an NAI school in Nebraska, and then finished up at York College, outside of Lincoln, if I'm correct.
Just right outside of Lincoln. That's right.
Then you got your coaching start at Feather River, down at 2 years as in your first tour at St. Mary's. And then head coach at Ohlone Junior College. For 3 years, up at the University of Washington for 3 years, Cal State Northridge for 6, and you're finishing your second tour at St. Mary's.
That's right. That's right.
What did I miss about your bio, Jordan?
No, that was good. It's darn close. That's what it was. I mean, I've been at a couple of different levels. You know, junior college. I got to play at the NAI level. Obviously, Coach JC. I got to bird dog a little bit on the scouting side and get to learn a little bit, which was fun. In Northern California for the Pirates and the Braves for a little bit with Blaine and with Sean Campbell back in the day, and then Ohlone, Ohlone College, and we kind of paralleled some things in terms. I was thinking more about it, you and me, the fact that you were out at Dartmouth private school, I'm at a private school now, and then your time at San Jose State, my time at Cal State Northridge. So there's a parallel in terms of what we've done. Obviously, our history with NorCal baseball and just, Northern California baseball in general. It's been
we did have a parallel journey there. And, to quote the line in Blue Moon Odom, we had a cup of coffee together at Cal State Northridge.
It was awesome.
Right before,
I wish it would have lasted longer, man. It was fun.
So right before for people that didn't know, right before Stanford, I actually went down to Northridge for literally, it was probably about 2 weeks.
It was the best 2 weeks. Best 2 weeks I've had in coaching.
Shadowed you guys, and it was really we'll get into some of it, but let's talk about some of the interesting things about you, Jordan. When I was kind of checking out and really digging into your background, you've been around some really impressive coaches. First at Cuesta, Larry Lee, who's at Cal Poly now, then up at Feather River with Jed Soto, Gabe Zappin, who's a good friend, and then with the Chicago Cubs. Then you went to Ohlone College with Tom Kunis, who's known for the pitching coach at Stanford, but is now the scout with the Dodgers. I mean, you've been around a lot of good guys. You were up at UW with Coach Meggs, and then certainly you're surrounded by some guys now who are, there's a tremendous background, Greg Moore, and everything. So talk about some of the things that the guys that you've been around and what you pulled from them and kind of brought to you as coaching philosophy.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. And naming some of those names, you think about some of those guys, some of the best on the West Coast in baseball, really in college baseball. I have been lucky. When I was at Feather River College to first start out, you mentioned Gabe Zappin and Jed Soto and Steve Roberts and some guys that as a young kid changed my life. I knew I liked college baseball. I knew I wanted to play it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to act or, how to do the dance that we're all doing right now at a really high level. And as a young coach, coaches, they took me under their wing and really showed me a different brand of baseball. And even back to Larry Lee, that was my indoctrination to what professionalism was and how to treat kids and competitiveness and all of that stuff. So it just sort of kind of went from there. And I've been lucky. With Tom Kunis, that was an unbelievable experience. Coming right off the year he left, from Stanford. So it felt like we were at Stanford. We were just on the other side of the bay. We were coaching junior college kids, but the intensity and the practice organization and the level of detail was unbelievable. And so I got a chance to do that. I had a stop. My very first stop in college coaching at Feather River was actually with Reed Peters, who's at Delta. Yep. And I got a chance to learn about hitting in a different way from a guy who did it at a really high clip, and got to meet his brother Rex, and just got a chance to be around some good baseball people. And so, along the way you meet people, right? We got a chance to meet and pick each other's brains and kind of come up together, and get a chance to meet a guy like Greg Moore and watch how he did it differently. He, the way he treated people and the way he went about the recruiting was unique and detailed. And I was always fascinated by, where he went, why he was going, and after certain kids, and, why he was able to do some of the things that he did. And so when I had a chance after Ohlone to go up to Washington, Greg was there as the pitching coach. And, Lindsey Meggs is one of the best tacticians and most intense guys that I've ever been around. I probably learned more from him in that first year about baseball and just things, team defenses, and how to run a real professional organization. And then I was lucky enough to be up there with Dave Nakama, who's one of the best people I've ever met, and one of the brightest baseball minds I've ever been around in terms of hitting and recruiting, and talk about treating people the right way. So it was fun to be around him, and Jason Kelly there for a short time. I got to be around Tanner Swanson, which I was very fortunate to be around those guys. They're just awesome baseball people. And so that was really fun. And then I got a chance to go back down to Northridge and with Greg and Coach Moore in a different role, and got a chance to do some things down there and meet a lot of really cool people and connect. And so that was fun. And from that came Coach Goulding, Riley Goulding, who came up as a young coach and is now doing some really big things right now for us at St. Mary's. And, it's fun to work with him every single day, and Coach Moore and Coach Tash and some of those guys we've got now at St. Mary's doing this thing. So, yeah, I've been lucky, but really lucky to be around some awesome people.
Yeah. Jordan Twohig, associate head coach at St. Mary's. And unlike some of the other Instagram lives we have, because of NCAA rules, we're not going to be taking any questions tonight. And but let's talk about some recruiting stuff, Jordan. Sure. And a lot of people will know you're a guy that gets out there a ton. You've been at some private schools, University of Washington, then you went down to a state school in Northridge, but now you're back at a school, a private school at St. Mary's. Talk about the things that are the parallels, the things that are similar, but the things that are a little different between a private school and a public school in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, well, it's funny, when I went up to Washington for almost 3 months, I thought we were a private school, and then I found out, no joke, I thought it was a private school. It's a state school, but it's such a highly regarded academic institution. It almost runs as a private university. It's so hard to get in there. The financial aid for athletes isn't quite, what it is at some other schools. And so Washington was basically, it's the baseball scholarship. It's the rare occasion that a kid gets financial aid in terms of Pell Grants and things like that. It was a rare occasion that academics gave some academic scholarship, because it's so competitive and there were so many people that wanted to go there. So it made it tougher, in a sense, to get different people in. I mean, it was baseball, and you got to try to make it work. And so I thought the facilities and the program and what we had going really sold itself. And then we were able to gain some momentum. And when I left, those guys just took it and ran with it. But going to Northridge, you get a chance to be at a state school. And so it opens up the opportunity for financial aid. It opens up the opportunity to start piecing together non-countable aid with baseball, and all of a sudden, putting really good packages together for people. And so we really dove in on that, trying to get creative. Veteran scholarships and things like that started to come into play, and how can we best maximize the dollar and also alleviate some of the costs for parents in terms of trying to get them into school. I had some history, like you said before, I was at St. Mary's for 2 years before. And so I wasn't in a recruiting role, but I was behind the scenes with financial aid and with admissions and helping Zap and helping Coach Soto really try to piece that together. So I had an idea, but then when I got a chance to come back this last year, things had changed. Coach Valenzuela, Coach Costanza, Coach Fontino, all the guys that were at St. Mary's the last 5-6 years had done such an unbelievable job of recruiting really special people, special athletes, and had done such a good job building up the culture that we were so fortunate to take over some really good players. And what I found when I got back is that, they were good students, but not all of them. What St. Mary's had done is they had they'd changed some things around academically. And so for the private school standpoint, and it's like this with a lot of schools in our conference and really on the West Coast, that, we've been able to piece some academic scholarships based on SAT and GPA, and also be able to mirror that with baseball. And so, along with the financial aid. And so now you're dealing with three pieces that I've never really had before. It was either baseball and something else in terms of scholarships.
Sure.
And now you're dealing with a situation in a private school, which I'm sure you dealt with a little bit at Dartmouth, where the academic piece becomes real. And then obviously, Ivy, you didn't have baseball scholarships, but we do. And then you have the financial aid piece that we've been able to piece together. And it's been fun. It's been a cool navigation to figure that part of it out, and finding some pretty good packages for people to, like I said, alleviate some of that cost, because it is, private schools can be expensive.
Yeah, and I think that's there's a big misconception out there about, it's a private school, that there's only quote unquote, rich kids go there, or the affluent,
Sure.
or kids that have been they're grandfathered in because their dad and their grandfather and everything.
Sure.
And
that's not the case.
We both know that's not the case, and I don't want you to speak directly to St. Mary's, but
sure.
talk about the opportunities that a private school might have to offer a student that maybe a public school it'd be a little tougher to do.
Yeah, I think that because private schools, they operate off of enrollment, and there's a big piece of it that comes to that, is that there's certain packages and certain things put in place to get young men and women into those schools. And so if you can meet a certain benchmark GPA wise, and it doesn't, we're not talking 4.0 in all cases. We're talking, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3s in some cases. With a good SAT score or a good ACT score, that academic scholarship becomes real, and that takes care of, in some cases 30, 40% of tuition, which is a big deal. And then to be able to piece that together with any kind of Pell Grant or veterans money, or even some type of a student loan. And then you go to the fact that the baseball player might actually be recruitable, and he's good, and he's worth a certain amount of money based on however the recruiting is being done at that particular school. At a private school, you can kind of hit them with the trifecta, and you look up and go, wow, that's a really affordable thing. Whereas at public schools, even though the cost of overall is cheaper, and trust me, I've been at both, and I think there's advantages to both. Sometimes you're limited in what you can give. So even though the price tag isn't as large overall, sometimes you're left with even some more cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people kind of forget is, let's say, and I'll talk about it from when I was coaching at a state school, that baseball scholarship or a scholarship in general can't go towards, say, a stipend or for, rent. But if you're at a private school, that money can be packaged on, and now that's going to go towards, say, rent or food, where now it actually might be a little cheaper to go to a private school than it would be to go to a public school.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. And I picked your brain a little bit. I have been for a while, but you've been at a lot of good places. In terms of I have so much respect for what you did at Dartmouth, because of the fact that you had to recruit at the Ivy League. That's hard to do. It's such a value, and everybody wants to be there academically, but the fact you can't give baseball scholarships, you have to be very creative. And so, we felt the same way, not academically necessarily, and it's a good academic school, but not academically at Cal State Northridge as compared to something like you were doing at Dartmouth, but just to be creative and try to find ways to, package good things together, whether it was a scholarship or it was just a situation, trying to be creative in the recruiting and how we went about it.
Right. And, to tag along on the recruiting part of it, Jordan, it's been a very crazy, almost 7 months now between what's going on with COVID, and now with college coaches not being allowed to go on the road and recruit. And you get a lot of those kids that are starting to panic and go, oh my God, what's going to happen recruiting wise? Talk about some things that you have a great pulse on what's going on in college baseball. What are college coaches doing right now to help identify players that they can't see?
Well, I think, and I can only speak for myself, but I do see what people are doing. I talk with a lot of different coaches and agents and scouts and good people in baseball that are doing some really, really good things right now for kids. Obviously being safe first and foremost, and in what their practices are and what they're doing. But you're seeing some coaches get really creative in a safe way and allowing kids to do some stuff and get out there. And so for me personally, it's just been connecting, reconnecting with people that you haven't maybe talked with in a while, or continuing to connect with people you've talked with a lot. And that's how we're having to do it. I don't think it changed much in the sense that I'm not boots on the ground physically at, out in Peoria watching baseball games, or down in Southern California or Northern California. I can't physically go out. That doesn't mean the work stops, and it doesn't mean the connecting stops. And that's the one thing that I would say to recruits, to coaches, to people that could be, like you said, panicking. I think you kind of hit it on the head the other day when you were talking about, don't think that these guys aren't watching video, and don't think that these guys are not making phone calls, and, be patient with the process. It's starting to level things out a little bit. It was going so fast, so quick that, I think now coaches are having to slow down just a bit and really evaluate and truly evaluate what they're seeing. If all I have to go off is video recommendations, I think you'll start to see some slower responses in terms of scholarships, but that doesn't mean that kids aren't moving up lists, and we're not talking as a staff daily about, what a kid did in his game yesterday up in Eureka, or in Ripon, or down in, San Diego. That happens all the time.
Right.
And we're constantly finding ways to just stay active and stay up with the recruiting in terms of what we're doing. So, talk is cheap. I know it's hard to hear that. And you're sitting at home as a 17-year-old going, man, I missed out on my junior year. I'm not really getting much of a summer, and the future's, who knows what's going to happen in the fall. So I get it where they're at mentally. And I would say continue to reach out to schools that you want to talk with. I think coaches we have time, but I would say for me, I'm as busy as I've ever been, because you have time to respond to everybody. You have time to call everybody back. And that's been fun. It's been fun to connect with people. It doesn't necessarily mean that a scholarship is following right away, but it really does give you a chance to slow down and dive into, the person a little bit more.
Yeah. One of the things that I used to do, and that I was kind of required when I was at Dartmouth, we used to do what was called cross-check calls, whether it was talking with the high school coach, talking with the summer coach, a pro scout, whatever like that. And to me, I think that's such a huge component of it, to try to find out what the kid's about and his makeup. What's a way, Jordan, that you're going to that you can do right now as a coach? You're trying to investigate or find out more about how a kid ticks, talk about social media, talk about, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on it in terms of calling everybody around that young man, and that's probably first step and you get a lot of positive comments, and the ones that have really trusted relationships with those coaches. Like if I call somebody I've known for 20 years, they're going to shoot me straight, and they're going to give me the real. Sometimes I don't always get that, and that's okay too. That's my job to figure out what is hyped up and what is real and what is not, because you make more than one phone call. You talk to all the people that you talked about. I also like calling the opposing coach, right? So you got a league rival. What's that coach think about him? Would he want him in his dugout? Is he tough to play against, but he's a really good player? Is he respectful? I mean, having respect of your coaches that you're around is probably the first thing for me in terms of recruiting. So if I get somebody who's got the respect of their coaches, I can go from there, because you've already seen something in the evaluation process that you really like. I think the social media part of it's big. I really do. And I don't mean that you have to say the right things and be fake and get on there and retweet all these cool motivational posts and all that stuff. But I just mean being classy and keeping it real on the social media is how I call it, or how I talk about it. We've got, a few guys over the last couple of years where it's been real teachable moments where you retweet something that shouldn't be retweeted, but you're not really thinking about it, and you just retweet it, or you like it, or whatever that is. And as a coach, you gotta represent the program that's either recruiting you or has recruited you. You got to represent your family. And I've got a little guy. He's not quite 12, but I use the 12-year-old little league example as if there was a 12-year-old little leaguer reading this and he's looking up to you. Is that really what you want to repost or say or retweet? And so, my 4-year-old will be 12 soon, but I look at that and go, that's how I would live on the social media side. Doesn't mean that it's a deal breaker, but sometimes it can be.
Yeah.
So we evaluate off of that and see how people are reacting to certain things. I think it shows some of the maturity of some of the recruits.
Yeah, no question about that. No question. And on the subject of recruiting, Jordan, a lot of people maybe get this misconception that you can just go and recruit off of video. And I think as a baseball coach, it's really hard. It's not like football where
really hard.
You watch Reggie Bush weave and dodge through, the line, and you can just see him, take off, and he's clearly better. What are the things that might catch your eye? You might not offer that kid a huge scholarship, but it'll catch your eye and go, man, you know what? There's something about that kid I like. If you see him.
I mean, for a hitter, if you can, there's a couple things. I think from the side, if you can see bat speed, you can see bat angle and the levelness to what a swing is doing. Those are always good videos to see. I feel like you can see something from that angle. The one that I'm really liking right now is the angle from center field into the catcher, because you see so many things. And I think it's hard to replicate when you're at just a field with a tripod and someone's throwing BP. It's usually from behind or it's from the side, and that's okay. But, in a situation where we're getting a lot of live at bats going on, and we're getting, even some scrimmages and some games that are happening in different states and different counties, to get a view from behind the pitcher where you can see the catcher doing what he's doing. You can see the movement of the pitches and even a velocity that comes off of that pitch. And then you can evaluate the hitter off of that. So, hey, that was 91 with a little bit of movement, and he stayed on that ball and did a good swing. So that's a little bit more of an advanced thing on the videos, but I'm seeing more and more of those come in, which I appreciate, because there's a level of effort that goes into making a video like that. But what's the difference with me being in the stands watching that view and watching what I see there? Yeah. I went with you. I think the video it's hard. It's hard if it's not done with quality and with care. If it's not zoomed in, if it's not thought about. But if it's done well, I think what it does is it puts coaches to the test a little bit, and you really have to evaluate. You gotta kind of know what you're looking for, or at least what you like, and see if you can see what you can see. So, same things apply in terms of what we're looking for on, whether it's pitching mechanics or attack or command, control, things like that. But yeah, I think the video can be really valuable, and it's just a piece. You said something earlier. You said investigate, right? You're trying to put together a case. You're investigating a kid. That's the first piece. You got to know that he's got some tools and some talent, and there's something there that attracts you. And then from there, right now, our best bet is to figure out the character and figure out the work habits. And is he a good teammate? What's he like as a student? What do coaches think about him? Is he adaptable? Has he played other positions? I think those are things you start looking at now. And then, compiling lists. If you're a program that's ready to make a decision based off of what you see in those variables, then you're ready. If you're not, then what you're doing is you've got a really good head start on when we're able to go back out August 31st, and you've got a lot of that stuff done, and you're going out and cross-checking, like you said, some of the things that you already seen. It looks really good, everything's good, I just need to go see it in person, and that might be where a lot of people are at too.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you guys, even back at Northridge, and now I know that you're doing at St. Mary's, is you're not going to go out and rush and sign that kid to a scholarship, because that's a one, obviously a 1 year decision on your part with the scholarship, but it's something that you guys really put a big value on, that you're not going to pull, scholarships and whatnot and everything.
Sure.
So the message really, Jordan, that if I've heard you right, is don't panic, because we're still going to go out there and we're going to recruit for a long period of time. I know you guys have signed some kids even during this time that are seniors to be and everything.
Yeah, I think you have to do what's best for the program that you're at. And if your program is able to wait, and you're able to let kids mature at the right time, and you're able to get guys that are developing at the right time, there's a lot of good players every year and every season, whether it's your sophomore year in the spring or your senior year in the spring, or even your sophomore year as a junior college player. And so I think it depends on how you're building your roster and what you're looking for. And we've been able to, recruit at all different ages, and that's been fun, because I think if you get the character piece right and you get the kid right, they don't have to be saints. There's no doubt about that. You weren't, but it's one of those things where you get that piece right and you feel good about the baseball side. They might be 16 years old, but we've had some success later with some older kids that seem to be trending at the right time and working the whole way up, because for whatever reason they missed the first wave of scholarships or the second wave of scholarships, and all of a sudden he's 18 years old and it clicks for him. And at that point, a lot of the recruiting for a lot of programs are done, and maybe at that point we did have something left, and there was some success for that kid or the program because of it. So yeah, I'm with you.
Well, let's turn a little bit. You talked about developing, and I think that's something that you and Greg and everybody, Riley do a really good job of. Let's talk about, developing and the demands of of a student athlete these days. What are the things that you guys, particularly whether it's at St. Mary's, Cal State Northridge, whatever, that you guys are asking of your student athletes? Because I think a lot of kids that are online right now think that it's just baseball, go to school, and do some lifting.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it for sure, and that's, I think part of it's just developing the whole person. The baseball piece is the baseball piece, and you're there because you're talented, you've been recruited, you do something really well, and you're there for a reason. And so the other side of it is turning them into good men and developing good people. And what does that mean? Having time management skills and having a passion for the lifestyle. As a recruit, it's really easy to like baseball and fall in love with the stadium and fall in love with the place. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks in, there's a lifestyle that goes with being a college baseball player. And if you don't have a passion for that, you're going to fail quick. And what I mean is being uncomfortable, waking up early, doing early morning workouts or practices, going to class, and then trying to find time to eat in between so you have enough energy for the rest of the day. And, being asked to do all kinds of certain, whether it's a meeting or a study hall or, a late night film session, whatever it is, it's different. It's not go to high school, go home, go eat at Applebee's, go to the tournament, come home. That's a grind too. It's a completely different one, but you start adding the fact that mom and dad aren't there anymore as that support, and that you're being asked to have some responsibility and some accountability to the program, to your education, to your nutrition, to what you're doing in the weight room. It's a lot. It's demanding on a young man. And so I think part of our thing that we've really tried to do is try to figure out, okay, how can we teach those skills early on, and then allow our players to teach those skills as well. So we have some, like I said, we walked into a really good group of older kids that had a great work ethic and a great culture, and to be able to put our spin of baseball on it was fun this last year. We just kind of got off the ground going, and this whole thing shuts down. But what was the best part for me was the fall, watching the older guys take the younger guys under their wing and talk about what St. Mary's baseball culture was, or, same thing at Northridge, same thing at Ohlone. When you see older guys that know how to lead, that want to help, that want to show that lifestyle and passion, that's what makes it fun. And so as a coach, I feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing if you have older kids that are helping teach the program. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's interesting about the spring is obviously all your players are going to get their year back. And the one thing that I will really say that St. Mary's did a great job on is I believe you guys were one of the first schools to come right out and say, you know what, we're going to honor the fifth year student athletes with scholarship. And that was you guys taking the lead on that. Your administration was huge, because there was a lot of questions about that.
No doubt. That's a credit to Mike Matoso and Cammie Gray and the people that we have here in the administration. I think they looked at that within the first week or two and called Coach Moore, and obviously Coach Moore filled us in on that, but called Coach Moore and said, hey, here's what we want to do. Let us know who really wants to come back and who wants to get after this thing, and we're going to find a way as an athletic department to take care of it. And so that's special when you have people that care about those kids, finding ways to raise money or finding ways to make that happen for them. That was fun to see that level of support. And I think it just goes to, what we're doing at St. Mary's right now. And it's exciting to be a part of that in terms of a work environment. So that was fun to see. And then, I don't know if we were the first, but you start to look across the country and you see other schools that are helping kids, and they're finding ways to keep the kids that they have, and not over recruiting and honoring the scholarships and all that stuff. I mean, it's really important right now. If you're a young guy sitting at home and you're wondering, man, am I going to school? Am I not going to school? Do they want me? Do they, that's, I can tell how that could be stressful when that's your whole world. So, hats off to all the administrations that found a way to get those guys back, and all the kids, they all get a year back. So it's, other than the seniors coming in, it breaks my heart. They didn't get their senior year. They didn't get their senior summer, which stinks. But, we're going to find a way to get through it.
Now, you guys are, one of the things that's kind of, I think, great for a program like yourself, first-year coaches, is that you got a chance to kind of put some things in, but you almost get a redo with, hey, you guys didn't start off as hot going to Sam Houston State.
Sure.
And obviously,
yeah, we ran into some really good teams, some good coaches, some good baseball. That's for sure.
Anybody that goes and plays at UCLA, it's never easy. But then you guys went 7-1 over your last 8 games. What are the things you guys are doing right now, Jordan, to help continue the development? And it's not just you guys, but a lot of coaches across the country. Give a peek to students and parents about what college coaches are doing right now, because some summer leagues aren't even going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it first shipped down in early March, it was pretty crazy, right? Obviously everyone was dealing with that. And then we, for the first 10 days, we let the guys go. We didn't know what we were going to do. And we were trying to just stay in good communication with them. And then when it got announced that we were going to cancel, at least push back and cancel the season, our first thought was, okay, let's make sure our guys are safe, make sure they can either get home or get where they need to be. And so that's when the Zoom call started, and I'm embarrassed to say it. I don't know why we didn't Zoom call before. How great are Zoom calls? So that. I just didn't do it. So got a chance to start doing that and connect with our players in a safe way where we all could be in one safe space, talk to each other. And that's sort of where that started, is being able to have really good communication, making sure everybody's okay. And once we started to move on into April and May, it was really about, one, making sure that, on a weekly basis, those guys were okay. But two, what was the plan moving forward? What were they doing strength and conditioning wise? Because gyms were closed, and some guys had gyms in garages. Some guys had the park outside. They were doing push-ups and sit-ups and trying like crazy to be creative. And that was our message, is you have to stay a little crazy and a little creative in what you're doing, because eventually this thing's going to end. People are going to come out of it. And it's the people that stayed focused safely were the ones that were going to come out all right. And so that was our message the whole time with the guys. And so that is what we've been doing a lot with the players, is, meeting with our strength and conditioning coach, giving us, a really good plan to push forward with the players and let them go. And some guys have moved on and they're playing summer ball right now, currently, in places and states that are open. Some guys are in indoor leagues that are doing a really good job and trying to maximize live at bats and live situations. Some guys are, in pickup leagues where they're going to crazy, weird places every day and driving 4 hours to get to a game and just for 5 at bats. And so what you're seeing is a level of commitment. You're seeing some toughness. You're seeing guys scratch and claw for at bats and opportunities, innings, whatever it is. And that's fun to see as a coach. It might not be the Cape Cod League or the North Woods League in terms of the best of the best everywhere, but it's baseball. And the guys are finding ways to play. We're giving them a lot of different material in terms of books and just ideas on an individual basis, whether it's position coach or head coach, making recommendations, trying to keep their mind sharp, keep them active, little challenges, things that we can legally do right now. And then really setting up for the fall, just giving us, hopefully giving us a really good, momentum boost going into the fall with these guys, that they've trained the right way as best as they possibly can. They've gotten whatever reps they possibly can, and that they'll mesh well with the new guys coming in.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you hit on, I was talking with a summer coach that you and I both know. I'm not going to name his name here, but he was talking about how some of his players are a little bit hesitant. They don't want to drive to 2 to 3 hours. And you hit on that and said that it shows a level of toughness, a little bit of, what, I'm going to do whatever is possible or what I need to do just to get ready. Talk about,
Sure.
One of the things that you and Coach Moore and Riley and Josh and everybody at St. Mary's talks about is toughness, and how you guys define toughness, not maybe so much in the raw strength area.
Sure. Well, let me preface that too by saying, I was strictly talking about our college guys, and and not everybody's in that boat. I didn't mention the group that might not be going out, for whatever reason. They say, hey, this is better for me and my family, and that's okay too. And I think you got to be, you'd have to be understanding of certain situations. Not everybody's going to drive 4 hours in this climate, in this condition with everything that's crazy going on right now. That might not be the best fit for a family or for a kid. And so that's where the creative part comes in, because you can always do something, right? Mm-hmm. Coach talks about that. We talk about that a lot, is that you can always do something. If you have a lower body injury, you can do something on the upper body. If your upper body's hurt, you can do something on the lower body. And in this scenario, we might not be fully open or accessible in all the fields or the practice facilities, but you could do something. And so I think it's just a matter of just keeping sharp and keeping your mind going. But yeah, tell me, what'd you say again on the question?
We were talking about toughness and how you guys define maybe toughness, with your players other than just raw strength.
Yeah, I think it's probably being able to, being able to keep the habits that you're trying to develop and do that on a daily basis. I think it's tough to repeat the same thing over and over again when it's boring and it's not fun. Everyone thinks that it's so fun and it's great, and it is. I mean, being a college baseball player is an awesome thing, but there's times where it gets real monotonous and it's over and over and over the same thing over and over again. And when the real shiny wears off after a few weeks, or you're in the middle of a fall or the middle of a long season in the spring, it's the guys that can stay with it mentally, that can still get up and go to class the next morning after getting back at 3 a.m. from a long road trip. Mm-hmm. I think that's considered toughness. I think the guys that, when they lose, let's say their starting job, and they go over to the guy that took it and they go give him a word of encouragement, or their ego's not too big to be able to help out a teammate. I think that's when you start to look at it and say, man, that's a tough guy. That guy really gets what it means to be a teammate and a player. And so that's, for me, that's how I define it. It's not those dreams, or I want to go to Omaha, or want to get a baseball scholarship. It's about, practical, tactical things that you can put into your life that become values, that become habits, that become things that you're doing on a regular basis, to where you can actually obtain the goals that you're thinking of, or the vision that you have for yourself. And so, that's we really try to do that. You're right. We have a Diamond University class, but really it's a life skills class that parlays baseball and talks about just a bunch of different things about being proactive and getting these guys time management skills and life skills and thinking with the end in mind, things like that, where they're hearing some different language that might not just be baseball talk. It's something a little bit different, and throws a wrinkle in it, which is fun for the guys. It's Coach Moore jokes and says it's CEO training for 18 to 22-year-olds. He loves it, and we do too. It's fun to do something a little bit different and have it relate to baseball. But I think ultimately, if you're in it, it's fun to see the older guys that have done it for 2 or 3 years, and you see the wide-eyed younger guys in a situation like that where they're going, man, what is this? And then 2-3 years in, you're just sort of nodding your head going, you'll know, young guys, someday. You'll understand what it means to carry this schedule and carry this load, and the tools that we're trying to provide people are, I think, ones that'll help them later on outside of baseball.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was researching that I saw that you guys are really prominent on is getting a degree is the bare minimum for you guys.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of people, they look at it as a destination when they get to college. It's, God, I just got to get that degree. And for you guys, you put a spin on it that the degree is the bare minimum that you're expected to do.
Yeah, it really is. It's you can talk to parents and you can talk to players and say, hey, you're expected to get a degree. We want guys to excel out of this place. And not just, where I'm at right now. It's been that way for a while. Is when you leave, if it's professional baseball, you'd be ready to attack professional baseball and all that it comes with it, being physical, being mental, the daily responsibilities that it takes to be a professional at that level in baseball. You better be ready for that and what that entails. But you should also be able to go attack the boardroom and be able to dominate a project. And you should be able to go into a business as a young person and listen and learn and be humble and stay hungry and understand what it means to communicate. So, there's just, we're all trying to get to the same place. We all want to win baseball games. We all want to win championships. But, what are we doing for these people, for our young men? We turning them out into the community as really good baseball players that need to learn a lot of life skills at 22, or are we turning out people that are ready to go attack the world? And hopefully it's in baseball, but if it's not, it's going to be in something, and it's going to be, done at a really high level.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing I want to touch on, Jordan, you've been around a lot of programs, a lot of pro baseball players. The kids that are looking at that, and they think, well, pro baseball is this and that and everything. How does college get them? And again, this is not a St. Mary's advertisement. But
yeah, no.
How does college baseball get them ready for that? That maybe if they had signed right out of high school, they wouldn't be ready for.
Well, I think to the credit of pro, and this is going to sound bad for college, but to the credit of pro teams, I think they're doing an amazing job with the little things like nutrition and the analytics and teaching young guys how to see the game and how to attack the game. I think what college does is it provides, either guys that aren't quite ready or maybe guys that are ready, but maybe not in all aspects. And so whether that's how to eat the right way and how to, 3 years in two in a dorm and two in your own apartment, it's probably going to get you ready to be able to wake up and make your own meals on the road and how to balance that. Or, physically, maybe, you have a lot of raw tools, but you don't quite know how to play the game at the level that it needs to be played. And you're staring down as 18-year-old getting drafted in a mid-round, and you're going to be playing with men, people that it's their livelihood, it's their job, and they don't care who you are. Where college, I think that's different. I think you're facing a whole completely different beast. You're looking at it as young men trying to develop people, and baseball is a huge part of that. And so the benefits of college, I think, is you're learning all the other stuff. You're sharpening tools that maybe weren't as sharp as they needed to be. For the most part, depending on the program, you're not getting released at the end of the season. You're not getting cut from the 40-man roster. There's some development that goes on. It's competitive at all levels. I don't care what conference you're in and what level of Division I, Division II, wherever you're at, it's competitive, and we all want to win games. But at some point, you got to develop people, and you got to rely on those skills as well. And so the recruiting, the evaluation takes some extra time. Make sure that the ones that you're deciding on are the ones that you want to work with. So that's a difference in college, in my opinion, is that in pro, if that doesn't quite go well the first year or two, they've got a decision to make, and they've got to be able to move on from that decision. Whereas, I feel like that's not so much the case at college.
Yeah. Jordan Twohig, associate head coach at St. Mary's, is talking to us today. Jordan, you're getting close to 20 years in college baseball as a coach. What's the biggest adjustment that you see an incoming freshman have to make, whether it's in the classroom, in the dorms, or especially on the baseball field? What's the thing that most kids aren't prepared for when they get to college that maybe they can start working on now?
There's a couple things, not one that sticks out in particular, but a couple things. I would say slowing down and really planning their day. That doesn't come natural to a lot of kids. I mean, some are already working on that right now in high school, and they're really practicing it and trying it, but understanding what your day is and then really taking the time to find the minutes within your day where you can steal 30 minutes to go get lunch, or you can be really efficient, maybe making your meals the night before, and that frees you up 30 minutes extra to get to practice early and work with your infield coach on ground balls. I think those are the things that you don't really think about until you see older guys doing it and you go, maybe I should get with that time management thing. I think that's probably the first one. I think the understanding that they belong, and not just in the classroom, but they belong on that team, and they might be with an older group that are 21, 22 years old, and they're 17. And so there's automatically this idea that I'm supposed to be young. I'm supposed to be the next guy. And maybe for whatever reason, they don't do what they were doing in high school with the confidence and the swagger and all the things that they were doing just 3 months before, being the stud on the field and the stud off the field. You start to tailor that a little bit when you're around maybe an older group. And so, I look at guys and say, don't be afraid of anybody. Respect everybody in the locker room, but it's your job to take, and you need to go do that. And so I think trying to get the younger guys to understand that you're there for a reason. You were recruited, come in with respect for older guys and respect for the program and the culture, but come in there with the attitude that you're going to make that team better and you're going to earn a starting job.
Yeah, no question. I think that's a big thing. We kind of touched on your resume a little earlier, Jordan, and you've been around some really impressive coaches on the West Coast. What's something you've taken from each of those coaches that you try to do on a daily basis with the players now? Sure.
The first real lesson that I learned was that you're not bigger than the team. And I mean this in the best way. I thought I was the guy coming out of a really small high school, didn't know which way was up or down, but I thought I was really good. And I got to a junior college where a coaching staff just kind of looked at me and Gabe Zappin put his arm around me and said, "Hey, listen, young guy, you need to slow down. You need to learn how to be a really good teammate. You need to learn how to bunt. You're going to have to do that in college." And they were patient with me, right? I probably wasn't the best player. I wasn't even close to being the best player on that field, even though my mindset was, I'm going to be the best player. I think them teaching me that really humbled me and showed me what it means to be a mentor and what it means to be a friend and still be a coach and have that boundary between coach and player. But they took it to a different level, and it really got me attracted to being a coach and saying, I like how they helped me. I really want to give back and do that. with other guys, it's such a honor to be able to do that. So that's what I took from that staff. And, moving on, getting a chance to be with Coach Kunis, I didn't know coaches were loud like that. Those guys were, he came from 9 and under that, he was there with all those World Series, and you got a chance to coach. So you know what I'm talking about with the Stanford guys. But, Coach Kunis was so loud, and I loved it. And I thought that I wasn't coaching if I wasn't loud. So I started to try to get loud, and that's what I was doing. And he pulled me aside and goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Well, I'm just being loud, Coach. I'm coaching, and I want you to know that I care." And he's like, "I know, but that's not you." So I okay, well, you want me to be me? I'll be me. And not knowing, I was young, and it was great. That was a good learning lesson of, you got to be yourself, and you got to find your own identity, and you got to do what works for you. And so, we complemented each other well that way, where it was intense with Coach Kunis, and I might be able to come up behind him and, grab a guy and say, "Hey, you understand what he's talking about when he says it that way?" And maybe that reached a player, maybe it didn't, but at least it was a really good kind of 1-2 punch. And then, a ton on the baseball field when I got around Lindsey Meggs. I mean, like I said before, when I got a chance to be around him and his program and his family, I mean, really good family man, taught me what it means to be a husband and a baseball coach at the same time. One of the best organized coaches I'd never been around a coach that was that organized and that detailed in the office, and made it work so well in the office and on the field, and how it related and administratively and fundraising and things like that. So that was a key. And, a guy like Dave Nakama, kind of back to that Gabe Zappin mentality. It's like family, and, you got to treat people like family, and you have somebody's back, and there's loyalty and trust, and that was a really big thing. Trust with the players, trust with, with what you're doing as a coach and things like that. So that was really big for me in my development, as an evaluator, as a recruiter, and just in relationships with other coaches. So that was really fun. And then being around Coach Moore, how to treat people, ultimately all together, just, regardless, and respect for the person that you're talking with, and the patience and time to stick with the conversation and not try to bulldoze it or get out of it or move your feet. Just really be in the moment and respect what's going on, and give people the courtesy and the time. And, it might mean that you miss 1 or 2 calls. It might mean that you miss 1 or 2 conversations, but the conversations you do have, or the people that you deal with, there's with substance and, meant something. And so I've learned a ton from Coach on multiple levels, and learn every day. I had a conversation 2 hours ago and learned something new. So it's fun. It's evolving, in that respect, and a ton more from a ton of different people. But that's off the top of my head. Those are some of the things I think I've taken from. And then even, from you, Coach Enriquez, with our 2 weeks, for you to be able to come in with the ideas that you have, and I see what you do with the young kids now in your area, not just the lessons, but the help that you're giving families and kids. You were doing that at Dartmouth. Even when you didn't get a kid, you were helping kids get to other places, and you were trying to place kids in the right fits, even though that wasn't necessarily in your job description. You were the recruiter for Dartmouth. You were helping kids get to other places. And I see you doing that now with all the information you learned and all the stuff that you had built up over the years as a really good recruiter, being able to now use that and give that back in these platforms. And it's pretty fun to see, man. You're doing a great job with that.
Oh, I appreciate it. And it's, I think that we're all trying to solve that little itch that we have with baseball. What's the biggest thing, and this is a question that came across, what's the biggest thing you miss about baseball right now, Jordan?
The kids, the players, the relationships, being around those guys every day. Because, you could go do something else and make a lot more money and be, and buy big things. But we do this because we get a chance to teach, we get a chance to impact lives, we get a chance to be around some really fun kids and fun challenges. So they're not all rosy. Sometimes the relationship's a different relationship, and it's fun to try to find ways to connect with guys and try to get the most out of them, whether it's life, baseball. I miss that part of it. I miss being around the coaches, because we can't be on campus right now. So everything's Zoom, everything's phone calls. And so I think you just miss that daily routine of being a coach, the practice planning, the setup, the lead in before a practice, the execution of a practice, the breakdown after. I miss that part. And then on the recruiting side, I miss the hunger of watching those recruits live, and the emotions of the parents and the emotions of the travel coaches and the summer coaches. I just, that's the fun part, to be able to go out there and just kind of shake your head and go, man, this means a lot right now, me being here to watch these kids and then them performing. And it's just, you take that for granted sometimes when you do it over and over, and you fall to summer, summer to fall, and then, it gets taken away a little bit as a coach and the players. That's one of those deals where you miss it and you want to be back out there with them.
Yeah, and I think you guys do a great job. You guys have you guys hosted a coaches roundtable where you invited all the coaches in the area and then try to connect with them, and just try to give back. And that's something I think you guys do a really, really nice job about at St. Mary's, that I think I'm all behind. I think you guys do an excellent job with that, Jordan. We got about 5 minutes left with Jordan Twohig at St. Mary's College. One thing I want to hit on first, Jordan, we're both parents, both have little boys. Yeah. What's your advice to parents right now with their sons, and even daughters, trying to figure out what the heck are we going to do with going to college?
Sure. I mean, mine's so little. He's so worried about swinging a wiffle ball bat and catching bass fish. That's all he talks about is, could we go to Bass Pro Shops? Can we go to Bass Pro Shops? So in terms of college, we're a ways off, but the advice I would have is just try to stay as positive as possible and try to do your best to reach out to the schools and reach out to administrations, reach out to admissions, coaches, whatever it is, and get as much information as possible. Because right now it's so unknown on what's going to happen. I mean, we have information and it's day to day. So we do the best we can to give that out to our recruits or to the people that we're recruiting. But I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen in 2 months. And so, I've been telling a lot of people, and I mean this, is that, we've been built for this. We talk a lot about controlling the controllable and stay in the moment. And they're all really cool, cliche things to say, but that's what this is you have to control what you can control, which is the day that's in front of you and the information that you have. And so when you're talking about researching, that doesn't change. You still have to find a really good fit. So what does that mean? You have to find something that, a college that fits whatever major that you're trying to pursue, or a coaching staff that fits your personality. And that's a little tougher to find right now, but it might not be, because you can email and you can call, and you might actually get more response from coaches now that have time to be able to do that, as opposed to, a coach that's moving fast and going from tournament to tournament might not be able to dive in as fast as you want it to. So for the advice to parents and to kids would just be to reach out, communicate, talk, and really do the same thing that I think you should be doing in your college process, is figuring out what the best fit is for you and then identifying those things.
Yeah, we had a great message that came across. Usually I try to get questions from the audience, but because Jordan's a college coach, I can't ask questions because I don't want to jeopardize something with Jordan with compliance, but also with the student athlete. But one thing you touch on, Jordan, is reaching out to coaches. What's the best way if I'm, a high school student, sophomore, junior, you can't have kids on campus. What's the best way for a student that's interested in going to St. Mary's or any college in particular to get in touch with you in general?
Yeah, I'd say 2 ways. I think the email right now has been pretty popular, and we check that. We check the email. And so sending a well-crafted email, that's genuine, that's from the coach or from the kid, and that asks specific questions. And I think you can tell when something's, copy pasted 100 times, or you can tell when it's a genuine thought. And that doesn't mean that the copy pasted ones don't get answered or get looked at, but something that's genuine, that asks real questions and is trying to dive in. I think we can tell that as coaches. I think the other way right now is to figure out who is helping you. Is it a travel summer coach, development team coach? Is it a high school coach? Is it an advisor? Is it a scout that knows you? I think when a coach gets a call from a trusted friend or a colleague or a peer, we listen to that and we ask questions off of that, and it's an outside perspective. And a lot of times that can be a really good avenue for a young man to be able to connect with the staff. And then the follow-up is, off of that, whether it's the right fit or not, and there's a way. So you're getting help along with being able to reach out on your own through an email. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, a couple minutes left, Jordan. I'm going to give you the platform, let you brag about, your team, your family and everything, something that I haven't done in a while. But talk about your family and,
sure.
Not only your Jordan Twohig baseball coach,
the real team.
Jordan Twohig.
Yeah, the real backbone of the family. My wife, Nicole, is probably the strongest person I know. We've got a son, Austin, who's 4.5 years old. We live in Livermore. We're, hanging out with her parents since I moved back. It was such a fast move. We we came to Livermore and we're hanging out with them a lot. So it's the first time in our life having Austin that we've actually had somebody to watch Austin, because we've always lived, whether it's in Southern California or Washington, we've never had that. And you know what I'm talking about, being able to have somebody to watch your kid when you go to the grocery store for 10 minutes by yourself. That's a very rare thing. So that's been fun. But yeah, I'm blessed. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, my mom and dad are close, to be able to help with family. And as well as I do, this is a really trying time for a lot of people. I try to take the positive out of everything. So to be able to see my family every day for extended periods of time, to be able to take my son to school, which I wasn't getting to do before, to hang out with my wife and have a cup of coffee before I really dive into what I'm doing with work. That's a value that you hope to take out of something like this, and not move so fast, because as a college coach, you move really fast. And if I can wake up an hour early, if I can wake up at 4, I'm going to beat somebody on the East Coast. And right now I'm still working at a really high level because I love doing that, but it's such an honor to be able to hang out and connect with them more, and see old friends like you even more than we have in probably 10 years. So
no question. Well, we got about 90 seconds left. I want to thank Jordan Twohig, associate head coach at St. Mary's, for coming on. Jordan, you're a friend, somebody that I really enjoy talking with and connecting with. And I'm not saying this just because we're on. One of the really good guys in college baseball, and you're going to find a lot of those out there. And something like this, I would really encourage players to try to find out about the coaches, because there's a lot of really, really good people out there like yourself, Jordan. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Feelings mutual, man. Thank you. Feelings mutual. So I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun. We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Guys, if you have questions, Jordan's on Twitter, Instagram, Coach Twohig, Twohig. Follow him. He does a great job of posting information. Jordan, I appreciate it. Tell the boys up in Moraga I said hello.
I will.
See you guys soon.
Thanks, Coachy. Best to you and your family, man. Thanks a lot. It's good seeing you.
You as well, buddy.
All right, man. See you later.